Welcome. I'm Catherine Hadro, and this is EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Pro-life surge. More than 530 pro-life bills have been introduced this year so far. Abortion advocates call it disastrous, while pro-lifers celebrate the state wins. We speak one-on-one with Montana Governor Greg Gianforte, who just signed 3 pro-life bills into law. Abortion and Holy Communion. In a new pastoral letter, San Francisco's Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone says Catholics who support abortion should not receive Holy Communion. Meanwhile, we're joined in studio by a U.S. Catholic bishop who tells us why he's committed to praying for President Joe Biden's conversion on the abortion issue every single day.
And I share about how I had certain inspiration points in my life, and I provide tips for how we can, use those same inspiration points ourselves.
Fighting for life. Pro-life leader Lila Rose releases her first book and shares with us new details on how she found her purpose in defending life as a woman, wife, and mother. Pro-life groups are celebrating as abortion advocates declare that 2021 is on track to become the most anti-abortion state legislative session in decades. The Guttmacher Institute, a pro-abortion research group, revealed last week that more than 530 pro-life bills have been introduced in 46 states already this year. 61 of those bills have become law.
Today, we're taking action to protect the most vulnerable amongst us, the unborn. We are celebrating life.
One example of this pro-life state effort is in Montana, where last week Republican Governor Greg Gianforte signed 3 landmark pro-life bills into law. These new laws ban abortion after 5 months of pregnancy, require an ultrasound be administered before a woman gets an abortion, and enacts safeguards to protect women from the dangers of abortion pills. Joining us now on Skype is Montana Governor Greg Gianforte. Governor, welcome to the show. I understand similar pro-life measures were previously blocked by former Governor Steve Bullock. You assumed the governor's office this January. Were these pro-life bills a priority for you?
Yeah, Catherine, thanks for having me on. And absolutely, we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate. They had been passing pro-life legislation only to see it blocked by 16 years of Democrat governors. No more. I recently signed 3 bills into law to protect the unborn. And Catherine, we know life is precious and it needs to be protected.
Governor, can you speak to how these new laws will help to protect women in your state? Your critics claim they will interfere with women's health and will harm low-income, rural, and Native American residents.
Well, I ran as a pro-life candidate. We're going to defend the most vulnerable, and no one is more vulnerable than a child in the womb. So the 3 measures we signed into law, the first one requires a doctor be involved if you're going to do a chemical abortion. There's been a trend towards tele-abortions. This leaves women alone, often with severe complications. We're not going to allow that to happen in Montana. The second bill, HB 136, it's the pain-capable bill. This outlaws 3rd trimester abortions. This is when a child can actually feel pain and in many cases is a viable human being at that point. We shouldn't allow that. That's now law in Montana. And the third measure, HB 140, requires that anyone doing an abortion show the mother a scan of the baby and allow her the option of listening to the fetal heartbeat. This has been shown to save lives. That's also now law in Montana.
Governor, the pro-life movement would obviously like to see the Supreme Court chip away and ultimately overturn Roe versus Wade, but it will require the Supreme Court to take up an abortion case. Is it a goal of yours for maybe one of these laws to be challenged in the court and ultimately brought to the Supreme Court?
Well, that's a grand plan. I know a lot of people are talking about that. I signed these bills into law because they're going to save lives here in Montana. And I just want to give a big shout out to all the people that have advocated for the unborn. There's many, the Susan B. Anthony list, activists here in the state. We had a great victory. These bills have historically gotten vetoed here. Not anymore. I signed them into law.
Governor, 61 pro-life bills have been signed into law this year already at the state level because of governors such as yourself taking action on them. Governor, with a pro-abortion president right now, President Joe Biden, and a pro-abortion majority in Congress, do you believe the pro-life battle needs to focus on the state level right now? What do you make of your role in the pro-life movement, especially during a Biden-Harris administration?
Well, it's scary what we see coming out of Washington. The pro-abortion agenda, the election reforms, the open borders. I think the line of defense at this point is at the state level. I have always been unabashedly pro-life because I think we need to protect the most vulnerable, and we've taken steps here in Montana to make sure that's the case.
You were previously a U.S. representative here in Washington, D.C. Do you think that you have more leverage now as governor for the pro-life movement and can make more of a difference in your role now?
Well, I was honored to serve as Montana's lone voice in Congress for 3.5 years. I got pretty good at voting no back there, but I will tell you, as the chief executive for the state, I'm in a much better position to further a pro-life agenda.
Governor Greg Gianforte of Montana, thank you so much for your time and congratulations on the success of these pro-life laws.
Well, Catherine, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And joining us now is Mallory Quigley, Vice President of Communications for the Susan B. Anthony list. Mallory, good to see you. It really seems that pro-life governors are having a moment right now.
You're spot on, Catherine, and it's because of the election results, especially from this most recent election. You know, like Governor Gianforte said, Steve Bullock blocked those common sense measures that have been passed repeatedly by the state legislature, and finally we have someone who's going to sign them into law. And it's a really exciting time. The states absolutely are where the line of defense is right now, especially as we see increasing pro-abortion policies coming out of Washington.
Well, as you said, it is an exciting time. In fact, there have been more than 530 pro-life bills introduced this year so far. The Guttmacher Institute calls that disastrous. Give us your take on what we're seeing right now and what this all means for the pro-life movement.
Sure. And 61 signed into law, and it's just the beginning of May, as you know. I think two things are happening right now. State legislators who have been on a tear, pro-life tear, I mean that in the best way, for the last several years, passing pro-life laws, they're seeing two things right now. They see the shift in the courts, thanks to the Trump-Pence administration, and they see the onslaught of pro-abortion policies coming out of Washington. For example, the FDA choosing, under the guidance of the Biden-Harris administration, to stop safety regulations previously in effect for chemical abortion. Montana now has laws protecting women. Oklahoma will soon have laws protecting women from these chemical abortion drugs. And so that's really important. They're trying to act, go on offense before they have to play defense against the federal government. And then with the courts, more than 200 judges appointed to the lower courts under Trump-Pence, in addition to the 3 Supremes, as we know. And I think that state legislators are seeing there's an opportunity here. The Supreme Court is going to have to address the abortion issue sooner or later. They're really on there's a clock running until they have to deal with it. And the state legislators are giving as many options to the court system as they can.
That'll be really interesting to watch. Mallory, what do you think this wave of pro-life bills signals about American beliefs and attitudes towards abortion, especially amidst the Biden-Harris administration and their aggressive abortion agenda?
Yes, well, the closer you get to the people, the more you are seeing the will of the people in action. So state legislators are acting on the will of the people who elected them. They received a mandate to go and to pass pro-life law and policy. Many states in recent years have done state amendments to the state constitution where it was the people directly deciding, our state's not going to have a right to abortion, not going to have a right to taxpayer-funded abortion. So we're seeing growing pro-life sentiment. Abortions are down. Women are increasingly choosing life, and they want to see pro-life policy that reflects their will. It's the court that's holding us back, the Supreme Court. And so that it's really encouraging to see state legislators and governors respond so enthusiastically to the will of the people.
Absolutely. We only have a minute left, Mallory, but what would you like to say to our viewers how they, as pro-lifers, can support pro-life efforts in their own state?
Yes, well, people may be discouraged because of the Biden-Harris administration, but as Governor Gianforte reminds us, there are opportunities at the state level now more than ever before. So lobby your state representatives. Find out what pro-life bills are in committee in your state. Does your state have a pain-capable Unborn Child Protection Act? Does it have protections for women from chemical abortion drugs? There's a lot of new things that state legislators can do, particularly on the chemical abortion front, that we need action on.
Get educated and then take action. Mallory Quigley, so good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Catherine.
San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Corleone, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's own Archbishop, has issued a new pastoral letter insisting that any Catholics cooperating with the evil of abortion should refrain from receiving the Eucharist. There was even a specific section for Catholic public officials who advocate for abortion. In his pastoral letter, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you," Archbishop Corleone writes, "Please stop the killing, and please stop pretending that advocating for or practicing a grave moral evil, one that snuffs out an innocent human life, one that denies a fundamental human right, is somehow compatible with the Catholic faith." He continues, "It is not. Please return home to the fullness of your Catholic faith. We await you with open arms to welcome you back." Corleone's letter comes amid growing debate about whether President Joe Biden, a baptized Catholic who is a staunch promoter of abortion, would be asked to refrain from reception of the Eucharist. Alongside the Holy Communion conversation, there are also calls for prayer for the president. During a prayer vigil outside D.C.'s Planned Parenthood on Divine Mercy Sunday, Bishop Joseph Coffey of the Archdiocese for the Military Services committed to praying daily for President Biden. Coffey said he prays Biden will one day renounce his pro-abortion stance and adhere to church teaching. And joining us now in studio is Bishop Joseph Coffey, Auxiliary Bishop of the Archdiocese for the Military Services USA. He serves as Episcopal Vicar for Veterans Affairs. Your Excellency, welcome to the show. I know the pro-life issue is one that's close to your heart.
It has been for many, many years, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all you're doing for this issue.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. Yes, I understand you've been committed to the pro-life issue since you were young.
Yes, Roe versus Wade happened a few months before I turned 13, and I'm one of 9 kids, right in the middle. I remember my dad was a doctor, and he talked about that issue that very evening at the dinner table. That's when I committed to be a pro-lifer. And during high school and college and seminary, I used to get on the Pro-Life March for Life, and I've been involved ever since.
I saw you at this most recent
That's
March
right.
for Life event. That being said, as a Catholic leader, I'd like just to get your reaction. We recently marked the first 100 days of President Joe Biden's time in the White House. Of course, he is only our second Catholic president, but has advanced an aggressive abortion agenda.
Right.
Your thoughts?
It's very, very sad because he said that he is personally opposed to abortion, but wouldn't want to impose his values on others. Well, that makes no sense. It made no sense when Governor Cuomo made that claim at a speech at Notre Dame many, many years ago. And it makes no sense because he says he's personally opposed, but doesn't want to impose his values on others. Well, can you imagine saying that about slavery? It wouldn't make any sense. Young people would say that makes no sense, to say you're opposed to slavery, but you wouldn't want to impose that on others, so therefore they could have it if they wanted, if they thought that was important to them. That's why it makes no sense. And also, the other reason is that because when he makes these executive orders, which he's done many of them in his first 100 days, that's exactly what he's doing. He's imposing his values on those orders. So for those 2 reasons, I am committed to praying for this president that he would change those views.
And just a point of clarification, once you're a baptized Catholic, you're always a Catholic.
Absolutely. I know, I think we all hear sometimes, he's no Catholic. Well, he is. Everyone who is baptized is Catholic. Someone who's not practicing is a non-practicing Catholic. So our president is only the second elected Catholic president. That's why this is so tragic, and that's why I'm asking all Catholics to pray for him really every day.
And can you speak more about that, Your Excellency, just the power of prayer and your personal commitment to praying for President Joe Biden every day?
Well, I was ordained a priest 25 years ago. Next month is my anniversary. And every Sunday in the Prayer of the Faithful, since I was a priest, I prayed the first prayer for our Holy Father, the second prayer for our president. So throughout various administrations, Republican and Democrat, I committed to pray for our president every Sunday. So I'm ramping that up now to pray especially every day for this president, for his conversion so that he will be more pro-life, because what I would like to say to him, if I could, is that none of us are promised tomorrow. And each day could be our last day on earth. And he has such power as the most important, the most powerful man in the world as president. What he could do. As a senator, he was opposed to the Hyde Amendment for decades. Now he's for it. He used to be opposed to Mexico City policy. I mean, he used to be for that policy. Now he's for it. Now he's for fetal research. So these policies are not pro-life.
And can you speak as well? We believe that conversion is always possible, even for, and especially those who are involved in abortion.
Absolutely. I always try to remember that whenever I'm preaching on a homily, that those who have had to make a terrible choice that they regret, there's always redemption, healing through the sacrament of reconciliation and confession. I always stress that. And there is always the power of prayer for conversion. When I was a teenager, I went to a pro-life dinner with my mom and dad, and the main speaker was Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And he began his speech by saying, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am an atheist."
Wow.
That got our attention.
Yeah.
And that was right after he converted to the pro-life cause through the ultrasound. And I think most people who watch this show know his story. He did convert to become pro-life. And he died as a Catholic, gone to confession, receiving the Eucharist, committed to being pro-life.
Conversion is always possible. In fact, some of our most prominent pro-life leaders are converts on the issue themselves. Well, your call, your personal testimony to praying for the president every day is a great reminder for all of us to pray, and that conversion is possible. Bishop Joseph Coffey, Auxiliary Bishop for the Archdiocese for the Military Services USA, thank you so much for your service, for your time, and for your prayers.
Thank you very much, and thank you for what you're doing for the culture of life. Keep it up.
Thank you. God bless you. Coming up, Governor Andrew Cuomo is in the hot seat after new reporting reveals his office hid COVID-19 nursing home death tolls from the public. I speak out next.
There's so many terrible forces and influences that girls face and experience. And so I wanted to talk candidly about that in the book.
Pro-life leader Lila Rose tells us about her first book, Fighting for Life, on how she discovered her calling and the role of her Catholic faith. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. New reporting reveals that aides to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo spent months hiding the COVID nursing home death toll. That is this week's Speak Out segment. According to the New York Times, new interviews and unearthed documents reveal that Governor Cuomo's aides overruled state health officials over a span of at least 5 months to obscure the pandemic death toll in New York nursing homes. Governor Cuomo has been under scrutiny after his administration early in the pandemic put a policy into place that prevented nursing homes from turning away COVID-positive patients. Cuomo's office claimed 6,000 residents died following the policy. But it became clear that not all of the deaths were included in the tally. Residents who died after being transferred to hospitals, for example, were not being counted as nursing home deaths. The New York Times is now reporting that Cuomo's aides engaged in a sustained effort to prevent the state's own health officials from releasing the true death toll to the public or sharing with state lawmakers. Cuomo's handling of nursing home death data is now under federal investigation. As of late April, it was revealed that more than 15,500 New York nursing home residents died from COVID-19. Governor Andrew Cuomo has denied wrongdoing, but here is a message to New York's Catholic governor and to his staff involved in this. The lives of our elderly and vulnerable who live in New York nursing homes, their lives matter, and their deaths are deserving of dignity, which requires truth, not lies. People at nursing homes, their lives may be more hidden, more dependent, but it does not mean they can be forgotten. In fact, it means all the more they must be remembered. To first enact a mandate that puts nursing home residents at risk, only to quickly rescind it and then cover up the resulting mess, is a dereliction of responsibility and offensive. May everything in this nursing home scandal be brought to the light. Lila Rose is a prominent pro-life figure and now in her first book wants to help others learn how they too can fight for life. That's this week's ProLife Focus.
I sensed in my soul early on I had a mission, and I began a journey of that mission, which I am still on today.
Today, Lila Rose is a global representative for the pro-life millennial. She's president and founder of Live Action, a pro-life group that investigates, educates, and inspires, with the largest online presence in the pro-life movement.
Telling women they must have the ability to take the lives of their children in order to achieve fulfillment is not empowering.
Rose has also branched out to become an international speaker, a podcaster, but most importantly, a wife and mother. And now with her first book, she can add author to the list. In Fighting for Life, Lila Rose pulls back the curtain on how she found her calling to defend the unborn, so others can embrace their calling as well. Lila, in reading your book, it feels one part memoir, one part inspiring self-help book. How would you describe Fighting for Life, and why did you want to release your first book now?
The book is a collection of my experiences and stories, the lessons that I've learned, the hard lessons I've had to learn over the years of activism, working internationally in the pro-life fight, so that I can help others stand up for life as well and make a difference in the world, because each of us are called to make a difference. It'll look different for each of us, but I think we need to each have that encouragement, inspiration to know what is my calling, what is my role, and then stand up and make the difference.
And what this pro-life leader calls a guidebook, Fighting for Life pairs Lila's personal stories with practical advice. She does not hold back in even sharing the vulnerable and dark chapters of life, particularly during her teenage years. In Chapter 4, you reveal that as a teenager, you dealt with cutting and with binging and purging food, writing, quote, "Cutting and extreme behaviors with food were the experimental coping strategies I had developed for dealing with a depression that had descended on me over the previous year like a bewildering fog."
I think there's sometimes this sense that, somebody who's like doing pro-life activism full time or, leading an organization, they have it all together and they're going to just, they never had any hard things in their life. And so it's really not something that maybe a person feels that they can aspire to. What I'm trying to show is that we all have challenges in our lives. And especially as young women, and if you have a young woman in your life, there's so many terrible forces and influences that girls face and experience. And so I wanted to talk candidly about that in the book, but to also present the message of hope that we can overcome these things.
It was also during her teenage years at just age 15 that Rose launched Live Action from her family's living room. Then in college, Lila Rose brought Live Action to UCLA, where she first began her undercover investigations at Planned Parenthood and took her first step into the TV world.
As an investigative student journalist, I kind of smelled the story. I had a hunch that maybe this was a problem in Los Angeles.
God took me one step at a time because I was willing to just put myself out there, get started, start talking to friends and family about it. And that's what I encourage others to do too, is if you can just get started, be willing to make that difference, even if it might seem overwhelming at first. Just take that first step. That can make all the difference.
God, Lila says, then also led her to the Catholic Church.
Well, it's meant everything. Becoming Catholic in college, I share the story of, how I became Catholic, entered into the Catholic Church, and just receiving the Eucharist, getting to go to confession, all of these things transformed me and have strengthened me in ways I could have never have imagined. I had this pro-life mission before becoming Catholic, but when I became Catholic, I realized that it wasn't just a pro-life mission, but it was a mission as a daughter of God to become a saint.
And it's within the church that Rose also drew inspiration from another Catholic woman, also outspoken on the life issue. EWTN foundress, Mother Angelica.
I'm not going to vote for candidates. I vote for life.
I was just so inspired by her fidelity and her faith. I mean, this is a woman who had this calling. Again, she wanted to spread the gospel. She wanted to start this media network. And she had this passionate calling to take the next step, even though it wasn't all figured out, and to move forward in faith.
Now a wife and mother, Lila Rose says her main focus today is her family.
For me, marrying my husband, that is my ultimate mission, is to get to heaven, help him get to heaven, and I pray, help lead our children to heaven. And by doing that, by building beautiful, thriving families that are healthy and loving and sacrificial for one another, that's how we restore our culture.
This pro-life leader has found her calling, and she wants you to find yours too.
The message of Fighting for Life is you were born at this time in history for a particular purpose. God has a plan and a calling for your life. I hope that you can step into that calling and embrace it. And I hope Fighting for Life gives you the tools and the inspiration just to do that.
Lila Rose's book, Fighting for Life, is now available for purchase. Finally, we want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all mothers, biological, adoptive, and spiritual. Thank you to all mothers for nurturing the gift of life. And of course, a special Mother's Day to my own mom. I love you, Mom. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.